Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh, yeah.
let's play.
Hey, Jayne, how are you? We'll shake hands later, but hi.
Well, good morning, everybody. I feel more like I do now than I did when I came in. I always started that way. Have some fun. We have a lot of guests to help review today. We have 2 days, 15 students, 7 today and 8 tomorrow. And we'll work from the east to the west and then come back in the afternoon from the west to the east. Hopefully the sun will participate nicely with us. We have a lot of guests today. We have three key professors here. Our present key professor, Antonio Pietro Martini. We have
He's Italian, so it'll be a little late.
Yeah, Michael Marshall here, and Amy Weinstein here. Then we have some guests from Baltimore, came all the way down from Canon Design, Monica Passatore. And then we came out from Catholic University, Eric Jenkins. From the west side of Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Colleen Healy. And then we have Katie Irwin from Quinn Evans and Marcus Frost from Alliance. And who are we missing? And Marissa Carrillis from her own firm. And so they're going to join us for today. And we're going to go to, as I said, 7 sites today. And we're going to start in Fredrick with Marissa Tonkay. Her thesis advisor is on the screen in Shanghai, Minghu, and she will assist us at the end with some summation comments. So without further ado, let's get started. Marissa?
Thank you. Testing. Is this working? Okay. All right. So thank you all for coming today. This is really exciting. I'd first like to start by thanking my committee, so Ming, so thank you so much for all your time. Professor Dupuy and also Joseph Williams for all your perspectives. Also Professor Tillman for getting us started last semester. And then everyone who's helped me, Forrest Popkin, Gretchen Price, Jefferson Choi, Hannah Stoffer, just many of my studio friends who have helped me along the way through many things. So this is a thesis about community and the arts, and also looking at an urban scale how to mend a hole in the urban fabric through an introduction of a new civic center. So the title is Orchestrating Community, Revitalizing East Fredrick through a New Hub for the Arts. Just to go over what I'm going to talk about real quick on our agenda. So I'm going to start with the preliminary research questions I looked at, and then go into my program I selected, which is an arts hub. Then I'll go into a little bit of detail about a survey I sent out to some members of the Fredrick community, and then talk about the goals generated from that survey, and then narrow down more specifically from our context all the way down to the site. So these are some questions I started out with. So the first one is, can community-driven program facilitate a regional cultural destination? And that has to do with the survey I sent out. So I'll get into that in a minute. Then looking at how a civic node can mend a void in the urban fabric and promote growth on the city scale. And then looking down at the architectural scale, how architecture can promote artists, both musicians and visual arts. So first starting with program selection. So the arts have many benefits. That's why I was looking into a arts program. So from the cognitive scale, there's all kinds of ways that arts benefit the brain. Like they can actually change your brain structure from practicing arts over time. Social bonds can form based on like if you're in a group or like a band or taking an art class. They're just very beneficial to communities. They can help at-risk communities as well. Bond together and just improve quality of life. And then on the cultural scale, the arts can just define a culture and enrich people's lives. So I sent out a survey. This goes back to my first question about how community-driven program can facilitate this destination. So I actually sent it out on Facebook. So the goals of this survey was to discover, to ask people from Fredrick what they would want in an arts hub and discover what they would desire most as far as program, and then also just note strong opinions, assess their desire for additional music programming, and then just look into like demographic samples in general. So just going over quickly some of those results from that survey. Most of my respondents lived in Fredrick County, within Fredrick or nearby. And then I had a wide range of ages respond. Most of them were 16 to 24, but I did have quite a range of different ages. And I had 46 responses total. Mostly female responded. And then most people who responded were musicians, which is a question I asked because the program I'm introducing to the site is mostly music dominated. And then I also asked like a specific question about how people would personally imagine using this new cultural center. So most people, I gave them a list of options and then they could write in their own if they wanted to. Most people checked off that they wanted to attend performances. They have a desire to attend more performances in Fredrick, go to more dining options. They wanted to go to more Plaza outdoor spaces that seemed to be lacking, and then visiting exhibits and then utilizing music practice facilities. So this, I'll come back to this later. This reflects in the program that was generated in the building. I also had an option to write in suggestions. So these were just some notable quotes that were some common themes people seem to come up with among all of the responses. I just gathered a few of them and put them here. So more people wanted art. They wanted a large multi-purpose gathering space. Someone wrote specifically there's a lack of meeting space for larger parties. There's a need for a concert hall in downtown Fredrick. Someone was very passionate and wrote about massive musical deficiencies of Fredrick. And then, there was someone wrote about outdoor performing venues. That kind of goes along with the Plaza question of the earlier slide. And then someone just summarized a lot of what the other answers were saying, that they just wanted a place for classical or chamber music with easy parking, food, and drinks. So just to recap, these are the most popular programs. So performance venues is number 1, dining and retail, outdoor gathering space, exhibits and galleries, and then music school facilities. So the goals that I've generated from that survey are to provide, first of all, the desired program, and then the architectural goals to mend the urban fabric, anchor East Fredrick's new development, and then define a gateway to downtown with this new civic hub, and then promote on the individual level the artists that are using this hub. So just to talk about Fredrick a little bit. So if you're unfamiliar with Fredrick, it is in the center of Fredrick County, and then surrounded by rural landscapes. The Monocacy River is to the east, and then the Catoctin Mountains are to the west. It was founded in 1745, and the population is about 65,000 people. It's quickly becoming a regional destination, large so because of this linear park that cuts through downtown. It's called Carroll Creek Promenade, and it's becoming a major destination for many events, and this is the site, just relative to that linear park. Along this park, there's lots of existing landmarks. So all the way to the west is Baker Park, where there's a band shell, a Carillon Tower, and then there's a Weinberg Center for the Arts a little bit off of the creek. That's a historic venue. It was designed for cinema originally. And then the Public Library, the Visual Arts Center, and the Carroll Creek Amphitheater, which is very close to my site as well. Just some examples of some of the local architecture. So there's lots of industrial brick buildings. There's also historic homes. So like the Barbara Frigie House is a landmark that's a Civil War landmark near the site on Carroll Creek. So just talking about Carroll Creek again, because this is close to the site I'm proposing. This was a flood mitigation project. So it was after some major floods in the 80s, they proposed to do this giant channeling of the original creek that was there. And then there's these very large conduits. This is a drawing from a document that I found. These 20-foot by 20-foot conduits that channel all of the excess flood water underneath this promenade. And it's a popular destination for festivals, events. It's kind of like their circulation space, but they populate it with like tents, so it's like a linear festival walk. During the summer, there's plenty of festivals for the arts. There's like beer festivals, all kinds of things. Then just talking about East Fredrick. So this goes into my question about how a civic node can mend the void and then promote new growth. So there's an opportunity for growth in East Fredrick. So this is the area I'm talking about. It's mostly an industrial area right now, but it's starting to get populated with adaptive reuse projects. So there's some like breweries, like Idiom Brewery just opened like a couple months ago. There's Attaboy Beer. It's becoming a destination, so there's more of a draw like away from these arts landmarks to the east across the creek to this more industrial area. So it's starting to have an opportunity for new growth. So jumping into figure ground drawing, this is my site again, Carroll Creek. This is that industrial area just to the east. Noting all the institutional buildings where people likely are drawn to, and this is the pedestrian core where people tend to gather and park in here and like walk around the promenade relative to the site, which is just outside of that. But introducing a new hub here will create a new center that will kind of anchor all of this development to the east and become like a new gateway into the downtown. Zooming in to the site. So here's that image actually looking towards the south of the site from above the creek. So this is during a Festival of the Arts. So they do utilize this space already, but there's no breakout space here, so that's something that's lacking. Here's the existing site plan. You can see it's about 270 by 300 in footprint. Just some notable buildings around the site. This is the Delaplane Visual Arts Center. So this is the current arts center of downtown Frederick. So there's existing galleries in the space. It was an old flour mill originally, but they repurposed it in the 1970s to be a visual arts education center. So there's classrooms from anything from painting to sculpting. There's also just gallery spaces. This is where people tend to go if they're going to exhibit artwork, and it serves the entire city. There's a parking garage that's very tall right next to the site. This is the East All Saints Street garage. It services this office building, which is currently empty, but it provides about 600 cars. And then the train station, so this is the end of the Brunswick line on the MARC train. So it's a commuter rail, so there's like one train that goes down all the way to Union Station in the morning, and then one that goes all the way back up in the evening. It's also the bus station, so there's anything from local buses to Greyhounds, which service this train station. The visitor center is to the south of the site. It's for downtown Frederick. It's just where people go when they want to visit. The public library is to the northwest, so this is the entrance is actually off of this alleyway here, and it faces the creek. That's a major public gathering place for the people of Frederick. This doesn't actually exist yet, but it's for my purpose of my thesis, I'm assuming it's going to be built. It's a project in process that is the first downtown hotel in Frederick. It's being done by Peter Filat Architects and Bates Architects right now. So that's going to exist like right here. Downtown Frederick currently doesn't have a conference center hotel, but when this comes in, this area is going to drastically change. Just some photos of the existing site. So again, this is the large parking garage looking, this is from the southeast looking northwest. This is the Delaplane Visual Arts Center. Carroll Creek kind of runs over here, and there you can see the spires of Frederick in the distance. And then looking from the northwest towards the southeast, so you can see the train station here, office buildings to the south, and it's just a big flat open lot that's currently empty. So the design implementation for my proposed design. So this is where the question about architecture promoting artist visibility comes in. So looking at the architectural scale, how the design can uplift the existing artsy community of Frederick. And again, recalling back to the survey that I sent out, looking at the program that the people of Frederick want to put here that will activate the space in the best way. So again, here's the existing site. And then the proposed plan. So there's 4 main masses. Each mass has a different program assigned to it. So the first area is the Performing Arts Center. There's 2 entrances, one off of the Plaza here and one off of the alley here. There's a second mass which has a restaurant and a music school above. And then The third one is a mixed-use residential building, so the ground floor is retail with 2 floors of residential apartments above for the artists. And then this building is a multi-purpose exhibition building. The way they're arranged is so that there are 2 types of public space formed. There's a plaza to the north, so this plays off of Carroll Creek, so there's still that circulation zone that people can walk through, but if they want to have like a breakout and set up things on like a plaza or have a performance outside, that provides an opportunity for that. And also this arts alley that is goes off of the existing alley created by the garage and Delta Plain Visual Arts Center, so that's a different venue for people to like set up retail or tents and also have like more opportunities for like street performing. And then there's also opportunities for dining. So looking at the program, the yellow is the public space, circulation space. Again, there's a restaurant that faces both the creek and has an alley side entrance. There's a separate entrance for the music school above. And then the arts alley, which has retail here, the apartment entrance here, the exhibition building, which can be used for multi-purpose events, art gallery exhibits that the Delaplane wants to put in there, just anything that the community wants to rent it out for, and then the Performing Arts Center on the ground floor. And then above, the buildings are linked together by these bridges, and the Performing Arts Center is linked to the music school, so these are individual practice rooms looking towards the creek, classrooms looking down towards the arts alley, and then the artist studio or artist apartments are looking down onto the arts alley as well. And then that's also linked to the exhibition building second floor with rooms that can be used for galleries or rented out that take up that space. So here's a section view, just showing the relationship of the plaza to the arts alley and how it connects with Carroll Creek. And then a section cut through the music center, so you can see the relationship between the performances in here with the music school and then the restaurant open below to the plaza. Again, just to reiterate how I integrated the program generated by the survey, so the Festival Plaza, I'm calling it, is the space for outdoor performances. It's a gathering space for the community and just a place for the people that are traveling on Carroll Creek to like break out and use this space in any way they want. There's a performance venue, it holds 370 seats. It's a more intimate venue, and it's good for novices or people that are invited in to perform here. And then the arts alley, so this creates more performance space, exhibit area, retail and dining opportunities, so it's more of a linear experience as opposed to the plaza, which is like a more open experience. And then the exhibit hall, which has the multi-purpose programming, so it can be used for galleries or community events because there's currently a space like this lacking in Fredrick. And then finally the music school, which provides facilities for individual and its ensemble growth, so it allows for that individual practicing opportunity or for people to come together and like work with their friends on projects. And then here's the aerial view. So the 4 parts of this building come together to form the entire urban block, which mends this hole in the urban fabric that is formed and brings East Fredrick together with Carroll Creek. And now I'm going to open for discussion. So thank you.
Question for just clarification. Are you adding buildings along the street front then? And can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so these are just to add like infill on this urban block, kind of just like to infill it, to mend it. These are just going to be low-rise, like mixed-use buildings, just to add to that street. It kind of activates the street a little bit more because this is an empty office building, so when that fills in, there's more retail to service the office building, and then, so it kind of activates that a little bit.
Could you talk for a bit? You said,
Yeah.
you mentioned that one of your goals was to use this site and this project as an anchor for development in East Fredrick. Mm-hmm. Aside from your site just physically being here, mm-hmm. Can you speak for a bit on how the design and the layout within the site actually addresses that future development potential?
Yeah, so I think when I was thinking about that, I was thinking that this, the Performing Arts Center as an object building could kind of act as a landmark that when people are traveling up like East Street or down East Street, it would kind of link those two areas together. And if you're traveling like east to west along the creek, it would kind of provide this central plaza. So if you're walking over here to the breweries, you have like a destination that you started here and you're walking over to the breweries and you're coming back and meeting someone at the plaza, or maybe you're walking towards Market Street, which is the main street in Frederick this way.
I think certainly it's a very ambitious program, and you've certainly dived into the community's wants and needs, and there's a lot of focus on the pedestrian, which I think is very commendable. I am curious as to your thoughts about those that are traveling by rail, and those that are traveling as tourists coming to the visitor center, and those just driving through. I don't know what route this is. I personally have walked along Carroll Creek myself and experienced that really great pedestrian experience, and to know that there's another destination elaborating on the Della Plain, and now there's a performance venue and other things. But I'd like to hear your thoughts about addressing those coming from the southeast and approaching and what that experience is, and thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I imagine that people would like get off the train or the bus here, and then when they get off, they'll view this alley, so they could experience the walk like through here, and then they could cut either up here and come out to the plaza area, or if they're walking to their car in the garage, they could walk through and get all this different experience as opposed to just walking on the street. It's more of a pedestrian-specific area, so just kind of makes that experience better.
I guess another question in that regard is, what do you view as the role, is that East Street?
This is East Street.
Okay,
Yes.
so what is the role of East Street in Frederick?
I guess that's a good question.
Thank you.
Right now, it extends south even further than this, and it connects to Interstate 70, so it's kind of like a major artery. It didn't always connect to Interstate 70, but now, so it connects kind of people coming from like Baltimore or other places in Frederick into the historic downtown.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's a large development happening, brickworks happening to the south of that?
I think so, yeah, so to the east, that's the area that they're trying to develop, yeah.
Well, more questions about East Street, I guess. Is that what you're envisioning as a drop-off where cabs would drop off?
Yeah.
Or is it more of a loading dock?
Yeah, so this I envision as a drop-off for cabs. There is an area that can be used as a loading dock if people need to load for the stage. So it's kind of multifunctional.
How would somebody walk from where the cab drops them off into?
So they would walk, this is a covered loggia, so they would walk into the building here. So they get to experience the alley as they walk, and it's covered, so.
And my only other question was if you could talk about the facade development.
The facade?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the facades are mostly brick to fit in with the existing context. So the three buildings that are not the object Performing Arts Center building are mainly just brick and glass. And then on the Performing Arts Center, there's zinc cladding, so that just makes it different, and it ties in with kind of the like industrial aspects of the historic downtown, but also makes it stick out as its own object.
One quick question. What's the program that's actually in the corner?
Which one?
On the floor plan, what's the actual program?
This one?
No, the corner of E and I guess the promenade.
Up here? So this is just the gathering space for musicians before they go into the concert hall. So it's kind of just a room for people before performances.
Marissa, well, thank you for, I think someone mentioned, a very thorough, very ambitious little study. I like how you took it from the research through the project. So I just want to, I think you, this thing, The idea of this weaving through this existing fabric to the MARC station, pulling this through, having this sort of glass extension pulling up. I think a very good weaving. I was very surprised, though, that is the access from this area to that area. I was actually do a diagram where I thought this was the actual public zone, but actually it's that.
Yeah.
If for my portfolio, if I were to do this, I would really start exploring this relationship and that dimension. Is there a shifting occurring here? Can this be actually another bay possibly coming through, and then a secondary, maybe primary, secondary bay? I'm not sure, but I think that weaving is starting to be very good, but I think I would explore that a bit more. That's a bit, lack of a better word, mean.
Yeah.
Used to degree
Yeah.
from all points.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was something that was kind of a struggle the whole time, was like retaining the views, but also creating this.
A ton of programs
Space.
happening there.
Yeah.
Like how do I fit it all on that site?
I'm actually surprised that the whole site plan isn't flipped. Because it seems, and even in your renderings, they're all focused on this one courtyard from the one direction. And I would argue that it gives it a destination from one side, but I don't know that it pulls or will pull from the other side as well. If your house itself flips to the other side, it would become a destination as a projection from the from the west, and you'd allow that gathering space to be a draw from the east. Now, I don't know anything about East Street or whatever, but it seems that is a neglected side of the building. And as that's your front alignment, you've got your train station, you've got the visitor center, it seems like more attention needs to be put on that side of things. I would also challenge or question the program inside, whether it's for music or performance, visual performance, in that those two can be extremely different and might have different spaces other than being a contained solid box. So you might find that a better exploration is to pull that out and allow full glass along the water, so your performances inside can be viewed from outside and can have the natural light. That is not uncommon, depends on the program, but since you're kind of writing the program, I think it's kind of a missed opportunity to not have that along and activating this water.
Yeah, I think I was kind of imagining that like this could be used for contained performances, and then the space around in the atrium could be used for like kind of like in the Kennedy Center, they have the Millennium stage that's outside of the concert halls, so kind of multi-purpose space around the exteriors that could also take advantage of the views.
It'd be more expressive then with your building, the form itself, and let it share that and not be secondary space. I would grab it and take advantage of that.
I would also like to commend you on your presentation. It was crystal clear. You had all the right drawings to introduce us to the site. To carry on some comments about the site planning of this, I'm looking at the Plaza, and I'm wondering what's going to activate that from 8 in the morning till 5 at night. I mean, I think performances will likely be in the evening or Sunday afternoons. And so that's going to present during the day a very dead area. And I look at this exhibit area in the lower right-hand corner here and thinking, well, you know, shouldn't that be up at the front? Somehow helping to form the plaza so that there's something to really pull people to the plaza.
Yeah, I did imagine there's a couple sculptures, and like this is a podium with a sculpture on it, so it would kind of pull people around and play off the delaplane that's over here. So
But it would have to be the PA to draw people into that.
Like Fredrick is going to purchase that.
Seems unlikely.
But the use of public spaces, I learned a lot from my son when he was a teenager and he breakdanced at DuPont Circle.
Oh, wow.
Where his group would choose to set up, get the most people, make the most money, was really fascinating. And so I was looking to see, well, where would they do that here? And I don't think that the alley, which will be dark all day long because it's in shadow. Would necessarily be where they would do it. I can't imagine that many people coming from trains and buses. It's almost like the upper right-hand corner of the site, which has a lot of visibility, might be a better place for the plaza, which plays into the idea of flipping the site plan. And my other question is, it's all very rectilinear, and I'm wondering if you had considered any kind of diagonal movement through the plaza and maybe exposing more of the back buildings to view from the creek.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's something I hadn't considered before.
It's funny, when I first saw this, I thought you were repurposing buildings. And so I wonder, if that the music hall could have been, more expressive maybe. And for instance, the buildings that face onto the plaza that has the restaurant at the ground level, it almost looks like it was a building that was there. Built in the 70s, 80s maybe. So, what was your thought on that? Because, there were, I think maybe, for instance, looking at some of Alvar Aalto's work might have been helpful, because of the big hall gathering space and the sort of, I'm going to call them secondary forms.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to keep it kind of fitting to the existing language of Fredrick, and I think that's something that I definitely struggled with, was how to balance existing with this new object that could be.
Which is a new object?
Like the I guess the Performing Arts Center as the expressive object. Like, how do I have that fit in but also feel new and exciting?
I don't know if that was a correction. I think it didn't have to fit in. If it's really a thing that sort of signals something fresh and new and 21st century happening here, that's maybe the place to have done it. Okay. With that building. And also just the shape of above the house and then where the stage is, usually that's kind of reversed. That the tower is expressed and then the house, comes in lower. So, you kind of got it almost, the form is reversed, the way we normally see those.
That gets to the question of the program, whether or not it's for performance and you're going to have a fly tower there, or if it's for music and different types of venues, which then you could break out into a different.
I was imagining it would be music,
But you can't do both. You do have the wings on either side. Maybe the proscenium arches may be a little bit wide. I don't know those dimensions. But you could have both, and that's getting the most leverage out of making this building for this community. They don't have options.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there is a theater. It's the Maryland Ensemble Theater that's located in Fredrick, and that's already serving a lot of the theatrical performances, and that's its own destination. So I think I was focusing more on music performance. So that's my thoughts there.
One of the problems of Carroll Creek, as far as I know, is that the original planning of it was pretty good and it worked and the channels all work and everything, but the city's never really looked at beyond the downtown. So one of the things your project does is it looks east, right? And we did a studio and we looked at these areas a few years ago, and there's some real great potential, and I think putting a building like this probably in that location would do a lot for the city. I think one of the problems though is that when you get away from that downtown area, the space of Carroll Creek is not defined very well by building walls, and it kind of dissipates. It sort of goes horizontal. And so it makes me wonder whether the plaza does that much for you, given the sort of lack of definition of all the space around that. When you look at that site plan, you sort of wonder that. It makes me think, well, maybe a couple of I agree with the comments about the building facing East Street and the entry and the drop-off and the service there. I think East Street is actually a pretty important front door into Fredrick coming from the interstate, and so you would see that very prominently. But it makes me wonder whether if the cafe building was rotated 90 degrees and the theater building was shifted a little bit west. So what I'm talking about here is, hi Marcus. If this thing slid a little bit this way, and this thing went like that, you could have like a kind of alley type plaza there, which I think would be tighter. you know?
Yeah.
And you know Sally Quinn's thing about parties? You want to have a lot of people in small rooms so that people are bumping into each other a lot, you know? So, because you don't want big rooms with people
She
sort of.
probably doesn't know who Sally Quinn is.
We'll tell you afterwards. But if this thing rotated, this was more like an alley, it could engage this stuff, I think, a little bit more, and it would help it enliven that, which is, I share the concerns about that. And if this slid a little bit and made that a little narrow, you could probably activate program there, and you wouldn't have all this kind of, you know, service stuff facing, which is ostensibly a kind of front door drop off. Because Fredrick is probably still a place where a lot of people would arrive by car here, you know? So you want to make that a really nice kind of experience. It just makes me wonder whether, you know, if you could control both sides of it and make it like an alley. You know, go down to the wharf and look at the alleys of the wharf. They're kind of interesting in that regard. They have service and restaurants and things on them. That way, it would help to define a little bit more of the space along Carroll Creek, and it wouldn't seem quite so open and bleeding out into that space, and it might be have a little bit more tension in there. You know?
Definitely.
I was thinking about some of those issues too, but I was wondering if you couldn't take out the restaurant building and actually have, you know, maybe move the performance space to the west, but actually have the arts center and the performance space on a plaza like together, so that the west side of that plaza, you know, would be aware of that other arts space. And then, you know, I mean, that parking garage is pretty horrible. But, and I suspect they could put that restaurant building there in part to screen that large building.
Yeah, the restaurant and the multifamily building kind of surrounded, so.
It's a little bit interesting. The comment about Alto, I think, is interesting about how the building works with the skyline. And it's a real opportunity to be much more expressive there. And, you know, I think that's probably something you want to make it more, because as you come up from the distance, you want to see something cool there.
Right.
But the other thing makes me think of, too, is the Broadway Theater, where, you know, the only thing you see is the marquee, and it's embedded in the middle of the block, and you have all these active uses around it. And it's sort of like your building's kind of caught between something like a civic center alto typology and something like a Broadway. You know, Broadway theaters where you never see the big theater mass. It's always in the middle of the block.
Yeah.
And the only thing you really see is the marquee, and the outside of the block is all active uses. You know, it makes me wonder whether that block that the theater is in, if it had more space around it, you could probably activate those areas, even with things that are not necessarily associated with the theater, retail and stuff like that. And it would bringing more people and more activities in there is only going to help.
I guess the last thought I had, and I agree with what everyone said about the East Street phase of the project. So really quickly, lacking flipping your entire site, because I kind of get why there's a bit of an instinct to try and like create a plaza that's tucked away from the street, and I understand why you want the edge there. Lacking that, I would look at the actual program of the building. I think definitely there's a missed opportunity in that corner with that being like a musician hangout spot. That really could be a spot that engage the community with more like public art, something, you know, that piece could have almost been popped off and articulate a little bit more, have a stronger corner. Something that if there is in fact going to be more development happening to the east, like a bit more of an icon that kind of draws people and says there's something cool happening here that's pointing in that direction. The other question I had for you is looking at your site plan as it is, the alleyway you've created that leads to the parking deck. I just wondered, did you explore how that could have been also a different kind of space? To just look at the Carroll Creek and the program that's already there. There's a lot of outdoor space, and then this area is going to be, you know, not as grand as the creek.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I begin to look at it like, could it have been like some sort of more like visage type thing, partly enclosed with like glass walls and ceilings. Some other thing that perhaps at nighttime could have a whole lot more life than daytime, particularly with Fredrick, because like obviously we're bound by seasons here.
Right.
So in the wintertime and the evening, no one's going to want to be out there.
Yeah.
So could that have been treated a little bit differently to actually bring people at nighttime, make it more of a fun hangout spot, particularly since you have such a young, youthful response to your survey, you know, a more cool place for the hipsters from DC to go to.
Yeah, I guess I didn't explore that, but that's a really good suggestion that, yeah, definitely there could be some enclosures along here to activate that at all times of the year.
That spot really seems like a missed opportunity. I mean, you've rendered it correctly in all of your drawings and show it so much in shadow. It just really seems like even the fact that the double story of housing is higher, it could have been a little bit lower to allow to at least get some more light in there, or maybe some of the housing switches into where the music center is, so that those people are getting some views. The view from the top of this, I think, would be really amazing to look out over the city, and I appreciate that you've taken a very sustainable approach and have what I assume is a green roof up there, but getting people up higher onto this, being able to be up on this upper level, maybe even looking into the performance hall, I think are things that you probably could have explored.
Definitely.
Going back to your original sort of talking about mending the fabric of this city, I think that, one, I'd love to see some diagrams of your process. So you have these diagrams that really show the analysis, but there's no process that shows us how you got to the form of the buildings, whether or not you looked at any of those openings. I think that would help as you sort of put your portfolio together and wrap up the project. And so it's hard to say, again, how you got to some of the facades and things that I think we all wish were a little bit bolder. And, because this is a prime spot, and it's got so much potential to bring over to the east a lot and really connect, and sort of going back to that mending is weaving and connecting back together and really taking that approach to the other side. I think a lot of the other comments have really addressed it.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if you considered, thank you. I wonder if you considered the fact that you've actually made 2 alleys, and the buildings that you've got along the cross street are very small scaled for such a prominent location and in relation to the context. I wonder if you've thought about perhaps letting the residential and gallery buildings expand to occupy that whole half block. Certainly you could wrap retail around the base. That would eliminate that kind of mid-block alley. Give, I think, more prominence to those buildings and more prominence to that corner, and allow a kind of different reception from the train station, kind of hold that corner. The other thought that I had as I listened to you present, you've spoken about the Performing Arts Hall as an object building, but it seems like it's an object that's kind of hidden inside a building. And I think that just goes to a lot of the comments about a bolder expression and so forth. It's not exactly the jewel in the setting, but it's really part of the setting. So I think that you've been very responsible about this kind of contextual architecture, but I think there's been a lot of commentary about making a contrast between the contextual architecture and that object that pops out, signals entry into that part of the city and announces itself by its form as what it is.
Got it. Oh, yeah. Great project.
Thank you.
It seems to me that you could accomplish a lot of what you were trying, or what folks were asking you to do with the theater by simply rotating it clockwise 90 degrees, which then puts glass and a better front on East Street, and then in what is now the upper left-hand corner, actually have an entrance that comes both off of East Street and off of the promenade at that corner. And it also then turns the back of house, instead of being on East Street, toward the alley, and gives you some opportunities to do some things there. But I think it would really help with this sort of sighting along East Street for sure.
It's such a small theater, probably the service and loading requirements are not that intensive.
Right.
So having it be part of the street is probably okay. Anything bigger than that, where you're bringing sets in and stuff like that, might be a little more problematic.
Great. So, Marissa, as you know, it's my role to see all of these projects at their inception and then come and see them at the end. And it's a terrific design problem, and a lot of great thought that's gone into it. Very briefly, there's been a lot of talk about the expression, the identity. I'm not sure we've used that word yet, but the branding of the community. This site is absolutely an opportunity to make actually a very bold statement about the arts. And so in hearing all the comments about the plan and moving things around, I actually think that this is an issue of section. And when you look at your perspective and you see how tied your building is to the ground, you wonder whether you could take the entire performance program and the wing and actually levitate it an entire level above the street level and create an absolutely transparent zone, perhaps with the beginning of the performance space perceivable as an object within that volume. That would allow you to create a porch like the Kennedy Center porch. You could imagine projecting right there at the end of the creek. If I look at your section down here, I see there's a raked seating that's kind of projecting into the ground plane. To me, that's a big question mark. I could just see this program moving up into the sky, and I think that would give you a lot of opportunity to really put this on the map. I also agree with some of Don's comments about rotating the performance space. If you did rotate it, you would see it in profile from the promenade and also from the rail station side, and that would give you an opportunity to really create a memorable imprint on the skyline of Frederick.
I think you could put retail at the lower level and have these three-story buildings and add more stuff there.
You could. I mean, if the entire two buildings on the creek side actually had a transparent and flexible level, you could create performance and/or exhibition spaces, pop-up spaces, events. You would give yourself a lot of flexibility. It would also address some of the image issues from the train station and create kind of an accessible visual experience from all sides, because it really is a 360-degree site. So very well chosen from that standpoint.
I think we have to give Ming an opportunity to
you're up.
comment on her,
Okay.
on her student.
I'm going to wrap this up, and first of all, I want to thank Marissa for taking me with her on this wonderful journey. I do believe her thesis is a very important and a timely one. I have learned great lessons from her, in fact, in terms of how she approaches this type of urban redevelopment and urban revitalization project in her hometown. And instead of propose a program, instead of erasing choose a site with the existing building and erasing the existing building and build a completely new one, she started from the survey. She started from asking what the local residents need, and also she started from asking what are currently missing in the existing urban fabric. I think this kind of mindset and this kind of approach and this kind of attitude is exactly what is lacking in a lot of urban design projects, including those projects in my hometown. So I'm currently back in my hometown in China, which is one of the oldest cities in China, a historic city with quite a few World Heritage sites. But now I can barely recognize my hometown, except the old city center and the several fragmented city blocks. while I'm enjoying all the new development, all the new buildings, high skyscrapers, super high-rise buildings, but I do think we miss a lot of our original cultural DNA, and also we miss a lot of our memory about old cities. So again, a few weeks ago, we had a very interesting conversation and discussion in our colloquium, discussing about what is the appropriate urbanism for cities like traditional Chinese cities. I think Marissa's thesis is a very important and critical project. Designers, planners, and architecture students should take a look and learn, get inspiration from. So for that, I want to thank Marissa again for taking me with her on this journey, and congratulations for this great project. Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you.